In South Korea, the entire country literally pauses on exam day. Flights are rescheduled. Stock markets delay their opening. Police escort students who are running late. And for what? A single 9-hour test that decides your university, your career, and, according to many Koreans, even your marriage prospects. That's not education. That's a national pressure cooker. And the Philippines and Japan aren't far behind. I'm Jhonna. This is Jhonna Unfiltered. Quick disclaimer. I'm an ESL teacher, not a psychologist or mental health professional. Everything I share here is based on research, data, and my personal observations from years of working with students. I want to start with something personal because I think it gives this topic more weight than just citing numbers. I talk to students from Japan and South Korea every day through my work as an ESL teacher. And I've noticed something that cuts across both nationalities. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that shows up in students who are high achievers. Not the tiredness that comes from just having a lot to do. Something deeper. A kind of heaviness that suggests they don't feel like they're allowed to rest, or struggle, or fail, because too many people are counting on them. And when it comes to the Philippines, I know that experience from the inside. Not from teaching Filipino students, but from being Filipino. From watching it happen around me, my whole life. From understanding firsthand what it means when a family's hopes are placed on one person's grades. That combination of observation and personal experience is what made me want to research this properly. Because I think the academic pressure conversation usually stays on the surface. We talk about stress and grades, but we don't always talk about what's actually driving it and what it does to a person over time. Let me start with the Philippines, since that's home. In the Philippines, the pressure to succeed academically is almost always framed in terms of family sacrifice. Parents work extremely hard, sometimes in difficult conditions abroad as overseas workers, sometimes at multiple jobs locally, to pay for tuition, school supplies, allowances, and everything else that education requires. And children know this. They see it. They feel it. And the knowledge of that sacrifice becomes a weight they carry into every exam, every semester, every academic decision. There's a Filipino concept called utang na loob, which roughly translates to debt of gratitude or inner debt. It describes the obligation a person feels towards someone who has done something significant for them. In an academic context, this means that a student who fails a subject isn't just experiencing an academic setback. They're experiencing a moral one. They feel they've wasted something that wasn't theirs to waste. That the money their parents worked so hard for has been used badly. That they've let people down who trusted them. This kind of guilt doesn't always look like obvious distress. Many Filipino students who are carrying this pressure appear to be doing fine. They show up. They work hard. They smile. But studies show that 35% of Filipino college students are at risk for depression, and 47% show signs of anxiety. And the data also shows that the country's average mental health scores dropped significantly between 2023 and 2024, suggesting that the situation is getting harder rather than easier. Part of what makes this particularly difficult is a cultural emphasis on resilience that, when applied without nuance, can minimize genuine struggle. Telling someone to be strong and push through is sometimes exactly right. But when it's the only response to distress, it can communicate that struggling is weakness. And a student who internalizes that message stops seeking support. They carry the weight alone. And eventually, carrying it alone becomes its own crisis. The expectation in the Philippines is also often very specific about outcomes. It's not just finish school. It's finish school with a degree in something practical and stable. Nursing, engineering, business, law, medicine. Fields that are associated with employability and with the potential to financially support the family afterward. A student who wants to study something creative or non-traditional often faces significant family resistance, not because the family doesn't love them, but because education is seen as a practical investment with a clear expected return. When a student changes course, delays graduation, or fails a subject, it doesn't just affect them. It disrupts a plan the whole family was banking on. And that dynamic can make it very hard for a student to be honest about struggling because being honest means affecting more than just themselves. Now let me talk about South Korea, because this is where the academic pressure conversation becomes genuinely extreme. South Korea has built an entire national culture around a single idea. Getting into the right university determines everything. Not just your career, but your social status, your income, and in ways that aren't openly discussed but are very real, your marriage prospects and your place in the social hierarchy for the rest of your life. The exam at the center of this is called the Sunung. It's the college scholastic ability test, and it's held once a year, usually in November. It's a 9-hour exam that covers multiple subjects, and the score you receive on that single day will follow you for the rest of your life. Schools and employers look at it. Social circles form around it. The universities you're eligible to apply to are determined by it. On exam day, South Korea effectively reorganizes itself around the students taking this test. Noisy construction near exam sites stops. The stock market delays its opening. Flights are rescheduled to avoid aircraft noise over test centers during the listening portion of the exam. Police cars are stationed to rush late arrivals to their testing sites. The country treats this day as genuinely critical to its functioning, and the students taking the exam feel the full weight of that seriousness. To prepare for this moment, most South Korean students spend years in a system that extends far beyond regular school hours. After classes end, many students go to Hagwon, which are private cram schools. These are additional tutoring sessions that can last until 10 or 11 at night. Some students study until midnight or later. The average student in this system might be getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep on a regular school night, not because they're poorly organized, but because the system demands that much of them. The impact on mental health is severe. Studies show that more than 40% of middle and high school students in South Korea report significant stress symptoms. More than a quarter show signs of depression. And nearly a third report having experienced thoughts of self-harm, with academic pressure cited as a primary contributing factor. South Korea's adolescent suicide rate is among the highest in developed nations. And the data consistently identifies academic stress as one of the most significant drivers of that rate. These aren't abstract statistics. These are teenagers in enormous pain who have been taught that their worth is measured by a number on a test. The cultural barrier to seeking help in South Korea is significant. Mental health struggles are still heavily stigmatized. Admitting that you're not coping is often experienced as losing face, which is the deep social shame associated with public failure or weakness in Confucian-influenced cultures. So students don't talk about it. They push harder. And when pushing harder isn't enough, some of them reach a point of complete collapse. Now, let's talk about Japan. Japan's version of this pressure is quieter, but no less intense. The culture around it is often described using the phrase examination hell, or shiken jigoku in Japanese, which captures the experience students have preparing for university entrance exams. Like South Korea, Japan has a system where the university you attend determines the trajectory of your career and your social standing in very specific ways. The preparation for these exams begins early. Students attend juku, which are supplementary schools similar to Korean hagwons, from elementary school onward in many cases. The school day itself is long and demanding. Club activities, which are expected as part of a well-rounded school experience, add additional hours. And the cultural emphasis on gamon, which means enduring difficulty with patience and dignity, means that complaining about this workload is socially discouraged. There's also a concept in Japan called hensachi, which is a deviation score that ranks students relative to the population. It's used to determine which schools and universities a student is realistically able to apply to. Students receive this number regularly and understand exactly where they stand in the national ranking at any given moment. The constant comparison builds a culture of vigilance around performance where being average feels like failure. Students who don't pass their target university entrance exams on the first attempt can spend an additional year, sometimes longer, studying exclusively to retake the exam. These students are sometimes called ronin, borrowing a word that historically referred to a samurai without a master, someone between statuses and without direction. The period of being a ronin student is often deeply isolating. The student has effectively stepped out of the normal social timeline, which matters enormously in a culture that values collective belonging. Data from Japanese universities shows that 75% reported more students experiencing mental health difficulties in 2025 than before the pandemic. School absenteeism has risen significantly, with more than 30% of elementary and junior high school students missing school at rates that suggest anxiety or depression rather than physical illness. A phenomenon called hikikomori, where young people withdraw from all social contact for extended periods, sometimes years, is documented in Japan at levels that have been concerning enough to prompt government response. Looking across all three countries, the thread connecting them is that the student's academic performance is treated as something that belongs to more than just the student. In the Philippines, it belongs to the family who sacrificed to fund it. In South Korea, it reflects on the family's social standing in the community. In Japan, it represents the individual's proper fulfillment of their role in a highly ordered social structure. When academic performance carries that much collective weight, the student doesn't just feel personal disappointment at a bad grade. They feel they've failed a larger obligation. And that experience of failure is much harder to recover from than disappointment about your own performance, because it comes with the additional burden of believing you've harmed people who trusted you. What's particularly worth noting is that each country has a different emotional style for carrying this pressure. In the Philippines, it tends to show as guilt and a very high-functioning anxiety that stays invisible until it can't anymore. In South Korea, it shows as fear of falling behind, constant comparison with peers, and a shame response to any sign of struggle. In Japan, it tends to be carried silently, as endurance, until the endurance breaks entirely. All three of these emotional patterns share one feature. They discourage honesty about struggle. They push students toward performing competence rather than seeking support. And without support, the pressure compounds over time until it produces the kind of mental health crises the data is showing us. The solution to this isn't simple, and it's not the same across all three cultures. But a common starting point is acknowledging that a student's struggle doesn't mean they're weak or ungrateful or failing to live up to their family's sacrifice. It means they're human. And human beings, including young ones who love their families and want to succeed, have limits. Education systems and families in all three countries are beginning to have more open conversations about mental health. There's more awareness than there was a decade ago. But awareness isn't the same as structural change, and the pressure hasn't lessened significantly. The exam days still come. The family expectations are still there. And the students are still carrying more than they should have to carry alone. Before I close, I'd love to hear from you. Did you grow up in an environment where academic success felt like a family responsibility rather than a personal goal? And how did that shape your relationship with your own sense of worth? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I think this is one of those topics that a lot of people have strong feelings about but rarely get to express openly. Thank you so much for spending a part of your day with me here at Jhonna Unfiltered. For those of you who are new to this space, I want to share a little bit about what I'm building here. This channel is my personal and learning diary. I am an ESL tutor and a solo dweller in the Philippines, living a life fueled by curiosity. Whether I'm researching the hidden traits of animals, diving into the mysteries of the natural world, or exploring the deep threads that connect Filipino, Japanese, and Korean cultures, this is where I document my journey. I believe that as technology and the world grow more advanced, our minds should grow right along with them. I use this text-to-speech voice to tell my stories for a very practical reason. As a full-time teacher, I have to be incredibly careful with my vocal cords. Managing vocal nodules means I must save my voice for my students in the classroom, but I refuse to let that silence my creativity. Using these digital tools allows me to share my research and my life with you while protecting my health. On this channel, there are no fixed themes and no performances, just honest documentation. From insights gathered in my global classroom to my experiences crafting a solo retirement lifestyle on my own terms, this is my way of staying productive and moving forward. I am currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers, so I can turn this passion into a sustainable future for myself and my pets. If you found something meaningful in today's video, please consider subscribing to help me reach that milestone. Your support, whether it's a comment or a view, truly helps me keep the depressing thoughts at bay and keeps my focus on building something beautiful. If you'd like to support my journey even more, you can check out the buy a treat for my pets link in the description. Shiro and the rest of the pack send their thanks. Thank you for being a part of this journey. I'm Jhonna, and I'll see you in the next one.